As part of our special Crime Watch daily investigation, we're embedded with LA County sheriffs as they conduct a sting to take down potential predators by using undercover decoys posing as teenage girls on Backpage.com.
You just heard from a guy who's on his way in?
Yes. And he knows that I'm a minor. He knows I'm 16.
16.
And when I told him that I was 16, he wanted 2 hours instead of 1.
Moments later, the man pulls into a predetermined spot across the street, and cops swoop in. After that, he's brought upstairs to be processed, where it turns out he had some questions for me.
Are you seriously Chris Hansen?
I am.
The Chris Hansen?
I am.
Wow.
What city?
I've heard about you online.
If only that had been a deterrent.
You were here to meet a 16-year-old girl and have sex with her. How do you justify that?
That's quite the accusation.
Like the suspected John before him, he'll be charged with meeting a minor with the purposes of lewd and lascivious conduct and held on a $75,000 bail. And it went on like this for the rest of the day, a steady stream of men taking the bait, offering one excuse after another.
You know, been raised white supremacist, and so when she said...
You're a white supremacist.
I was raised that way, yes.
You're raised as a white supremacist. What does that have to do with you trying to have sex with a 14-year-old girl?
I was not under that impression.
14 BS, and you know that. What does a operation like this say to people who want to take part in this?
Hopefully it tells them not to stay off Backpage and not try to solicit sex with underage.
But while the operation was all about impacting the demand side of the traffickers' supply, in Houston, Texas, one woman will be tackling the problem from a very different angle.
She brought this dress that's Sunday length, and we're modifying the length.
Tonight, she'll be walking the streets in search of Johns, but she's not a sex worker, not anymore.
I know what it's like to be more afraid to go home than you are to get in the car with a stranger. I was kind of an average, all-American, middle-class kid, and the summer between going off to university and moving into my dorm, I got pregnant. I learned very quickly that a lot of guys in college didn't want to date girls with a kid, and that created a time in my life of a lot of vulnerabilities where I felt unwanted, unimportant, and definitely alone.
The kind of vulnerabilities traffickers prey upon.
That's when I met the most amazing guy. He was charming and funny. He always picked up the tab, and everything that we did was about us as a family. So Chuck E. Cheese and time at the park.
For a full 6 months, the relationship seemed perfect. The man even asked Rebecca and her child to move in with him several hundred miles away in Las Vegas.
I thought the tables had turned for me, that I was gonna get married and have a white picket fence and kind of live out the dream.
But it was all one big life-shattering lie.
The day that we arrived, he told me to leave my baby with his brother, that he wanted to show me out on the town. But he drove me to a dead-end street, and he slapped me across the face. In that moment of being in that dead-end street, being physically abused for the first time, I had the stark reality that I didn't actually know where my baby was.
And that's when he told her she was signing up for an escort service to pay back the money it cost to move. Her brutal entry into the world of sex trafficking and to the language of the trade.
The first trafficker that I had, the what we call Romeo pimp, who uses romance and really fraud to coerce young women. I've heard traffickers say, based on how bad the victim's family life was as a child, will determine how long the grooming process will take. Sometimes I've heard traffickers say, if the young girls were sexually abused, I've heard traffickers say, I want to thank their fathers for making the grooming easier. It's heartbreaking.
That wasn't Rebecca's case, but she still managed to become a victim for nearly 6 years, traded between 3 different traffickers in all.
My last trafficker was the most violent. He would be what's considered a guerrilla trafficker. One time while we were driving, I didn't turn on my blinkers soon enough, and he suddenly just started punching me in the face with his fist. Blood started going everywhere in the car, and he pulled me out by my hair right there in the middle of the strip and just started beating me like a grown man. I was unrecognizable that night.
So why not just run? Go to the cops.
People don't understand the years of the mental trauma. I liken it a lot to domestic violence, right? It's like, well, why don't battered women just leave their spouses? The same time of mental trauma bonding happens.
She says it was only after police busted her trafficker for tax evasion that she was able to finally break free. But it would take years to get her life back on track. And tonight, after a decade free from the life, Rebecca Bender is about to go back on the streets, posing as a sex worker to expose just how big the problem may be in your town.
I'm feeling a little nervous.
Coming up.
Well, it didn't take long.
I have no clue if you're getting the next serial killer, you're getting the next serial rapist.
You look scary.
And
I felt like everywhere I went, he was there.
how one girl went from victim to convict.
Did you teach other teenagers how to turn tricks?